Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Nos programmes offrent plusieurs langues. Veuillez visiter suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Nuestros programas ofrecen varios idiomas. Visite suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Нашите предавания предлагат много езици. Моля вижте suprememastertv.com/schedule. The three core principles of the plant-based treaty are relinquish, redirect, and restore.
Principle one is relinquish, like no new deforestation for expanded animal agriculture. Principle two is shift from animal agriculture to plant-based food, so solve the problem. The third principle is reforest the earth, because that would not only reduce emissions, but you could actually absorb carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere.
Continue watching to find out more.
Briefly, it is not only their fellow human beings that the beloved of God must treat with mercy and compassion, rather must they show forth the utmost loving kindness to every living creature. Abdul Baha, vegetarian, Baha'i faith.
Esteemed viewers, Mieti Krasny Den. I just said, have a nice day in Czech. I'm Agata. Heaven is rejoicing and thanking you for the amazingly effective work you have been doing to find harmonious solutions for this endangered world. God-loving Czech Republic prays you will be blessed with further wisdom and immense energy to aid your mission of peace. Welcome to Part 1 of Plant-Based Treaty Initiative, the Climate Save Movement. Dr. Anita Crying is a Toronto-based animal rights activist with a master's degree in political science and environmental studies, plus a PhD in politics. She co-founded Toronto Pig Save in 2010 and helped grow it into a global network called Animal Save Movement. In 2020, our beloved Supreme Master Ching Hai gratefully presented the Shining World Compassion Award to Dr. Crying for her noble endeavors to save the lives of our precious animal co-citizens, together with a loving gift of $15,000 towards her noble organizations. Dr. Crying believes that to solve the climate crisis, there are two incredibly urgent tasks which need our utmost attention. Firstly, to end livestock raising, and secondly, to reforest the earth. This understanding comes from scientific reports which state that the extreme climate crisis we're facing today, already the cause of massive devastation all over our planet, is directly related to all levels of animal farming operations. To tackle this vital task, Dr. Crying coordinated and created the Plant-Based Treaty (PBT) initiative, kicking off the campaign on August 31st, 2021. Today, we are honored to have Dr. Crying join us on today's show along with Nicola Harris, who is the Director of Communications at Plant-Based Treaty. Let us find out how the Plant-Based Treaty initiative came about.
The idea for the Plant-Based Treaty came about in April of 2021. My friend, Sephora Berman, she's a forest campaigner for Stand Earth, and she used to be the Greenpeace International campaigner for energy. And I wanted her advice on how to put animal agriculture at the forefront of the debate about climate solutions. She showed us the Fossil Fuel Treaty, an initiative that she's coordinating. It's a bottom-up pressure campaign to get national governments to negotiate a global fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. Then we consulted with scientists that we knew from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and made our treaty very science-based.
The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change (IPCC) 6th Assessment Report revealed that there is a methane emergency, with 3 major greenhouse gases being the culprit, not just carbon dioxide.
We have to look at methane and nitrous oxide, and we know that methane and nitrous oxide are coming from mainly animal agriculture. If we don't address methane emissions, then we face, a climate catastrophe. Methane has a warming potential more than 80 times stronger than CO2. So even if we stop emitting fossil fuels, the emissions from our food system alone will increase global temperatures by more than the 1.5 degrees Celsius ceiling that was set by the Paris Accords.
We used the fossil fuel treaty as a reference when we started framing our own treaty. So we focused the treaty around 3 core principles.
The 3 core principles of the plant-based treaty are relinquish, redirect, and restore.
Principle 1 is relinquish, like no new deforestation for expanded animal agriculture. Principle 2 is shift from animal agriculture to plant-based food, so solve the problem. And the third principle is reforest the earth, because that would not only reduce emissions, but you could actually absorb carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere.
We then showed the treaty to Professor Danny Harvey, who's the lead author from the IPCC on the 4th and 5th assessment reports, to Peter Carter from the Climate Emergency Institute and IPCC expert reviewer, and they approved them and thought we were very thorough.
Anita further explains why we need to stop livestock raising not only at the large-scale corporate level, but also at the scale of much smaller farms, because of the negative influence the one has over the other.
Companies like Cargill, one of the largest slaughterhouse and animal feed companies, are working with small-scale farmers in India and trying to get them to adopt backyard chicken operations. They have a program called Hatching Hope, in which their goal is to get 100 million people to adopt backyard chickens. Cargill has significant operations in Asia and Latin America and the Middle East. They go into communities that are largely plant-based and try to convert their farming practices to backyard chicken operations. Our own campaigners went to the state of Odisha in eastern India, where they saw like 3/4 of the tribal communities having backyard chickens, whereas they used to be mainly plant-based. So there's a lot of unawareness about how significant the role of Western companies in expanding animal agriculture in developing countries. Because all our efforts come to naught if we reduce animal consumption in the West while animal consumption in India, Indonesia, Brazil, Argentina increases. So in the treaty, we said no new animal farming, not just no new industrial animal farming.
It's very clear that livestock raising at any scale needs to be stopped if we are going to stand any chance of reversing the increasing global temperature and catastrophic effects of climate change. Nicola explains how this ties into the facts about methane presented in the IPCC's 6th assessment report.
Around 80% of our land is now used by animal agriculture, whether that's farms, slaughterhouses, or to grow animal feed. So we have to halt the expansion and then reverse this figure, because it's alarming and we cannot continue to keep going in that direction, because we won't have a planet left. The Amazon rainforest may have already crossed its tipping point. This year is no longer considered a carbon sink because it's now emitting more carbon dioxide than it's absorbing.
Professor Danny Harvey, an IPCC scientific reviewer, referred to Chapter 4 of the IPCC 6th assessment report, which shows what we probably require are methane emission reductions of 75% in order to avoid surpassing the plateau of 1.5 degrees Celsius. A third of the methane emissions are from animal agriculture. If we are to reduce methane emissions by 75%, it's clear that we need to quickly move away from animal agriculture to plant-based food systems.
The second principle, redirect, speaks directly to this task. A report by the University of Michigan and Tulane University, United States, in April 2020 showed that cutting the US meat intake by half would eliminate roughly 1.6 billion tons of greenhouse gas emissions.
This research shows that if the US animal consumption was slashed, it is the equivalent of taking half the world's cars off the road. And this shows how animal agriculture contributes more greenhouse gases than the entire transport sector. So it just shows how essential it is that we shift away from these animal-based diets towards plant-based eating. And it's essential if we're going to reverse the climate crisis.
Anita points out another crucial action is for governments to stop subsidizing livestock raising operations. This has created a false impression of economic profitability in the livestock raising sector and contributes directly to the global climate crisis.
Government support for a shift to a plant-based food economy is essential. The UN Food and Agricultural Organization, the UNDP, and the UN Environmental Program released a report this summer saying that almost $500 billion in global farming subsidies go to animal agriculture. So when you look at all the government subsidies, 90% of the subsidies go to animal agriculture. So in other words, they are fueling the climate crisis. There is no way we can resolve the climate crisis without governments stopping subsidies to animal agriculture and shifting them to plant-based.
Nicola offered some examples of existing redirection cases where farmers have successfully transitioned to plant-based agriculture, proving it is doable and replicable worldwide.
There's some great organisations already, such as the Vegan Society, Vegan Organic Network and Refarmed. They help animal farmers move away from what they're currently doing towards plant-based farming. In the case of British farmer Jay Wild, he was helped to transition away from dairy farming to organic vegan farming, and he even released 73 cows to Hillside Animal Sanctuary. And so he's now set up an organic oat milk business.
Recently, in a global first, the Danish government pledged $150 million to plant-based food production as part of a climate agreement to reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
They're providing a great international leadership with their strategy to shift to plant-based foods. And it's the first time in history that Denmark have given priority to plant-based foods through their subsidies. They are creating a model to help redirect away from agriculture towards plant-based foods. And, that can be replicated.
We certainly do need governmental support to help farmers build sustainable plant-based agriculture. Anita goes on to say that having a meat tax can push the drive toward plant-based agriculture.
There's no way that we can achieve the Paris Accords if the governments don't tackle food subsidies to the animal agriculture industry. Mm-hmm. So that's one solution. Let's end subsidies to animal agriculture. The second is we could introduce a meat tax. If we heavily subsidize plant-based foods and taxed animal products, then it would drive consumers to change their behavior.
The third principle of the plant-based treaty is reforest. By removing the excess carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, we can restore climate stability and revive our wounded Mother Earth.
In 2019, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released a special report on land and climate. It said that the largest potential for carbon dioxide removal is reforestation and afforestation, as well as soil carbon sequestration in croplands and grasslands. Reforestation is the most important way of CO2 removal. Right now, the opposite is happening. We're seeing increased deforestation in the Amazon and in Asia. Around the world, we're seeing deforestation for expanded animal agriculture. So all countries have a responsibility in this. We're all responsible for what is happening in the Amazon. So if we reduced our meat consumption to zero here in North America, that would then help protect the Amazon rainforest. What we consume in various different countries has implications for the lungs of the earth.
Nicola reaffirms that all three principles of the plant-based treaty, which are to relinquish, redirect, and restore, can't stand alone and are interdependent on each other, so all three need to be executed as soon as possible.
All of the demands can actually work together in unison, but we have to bear in mind that our third demand is very much dependent on the first and second demands because, we need to reclaim land to reforest the earth. So the quicker we implement demands 1 and 2, the faster we get there.
We thank Anita, Nicola, and all involved with making the plant-based treaty a reality by convincing governments to put our current broken food systems at the heart of combating the climate crisis. To find out more about the Plant-Based Treaty Initiative, please visit plantbasedtreaty.org.
Vegan, the embodiment of Buddha's teaching.
Pure-hearted viewers, we're grateful for your company today. Please return on Friday, November 5th for part 2 of this show. Up next is Governments Should Be Pro-Life and Promote Veganism, part 5 of 8, and Between Master and Disciples, right after Noteworthy News. May your benevolent actions bring good fortune to your nation and heaven's blessings.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule and suprememastertv.com/VEG